Wait, so let me get this right. Hurry Up Tomorrow tells the story of The Weeknd trying to pull off their biggest world tour in the wake of their relationship ending with Elvis's granddaughter.
You think I don't know you're staying up all night, cooped up in that hotel room? You still got that adrenaline from the concert. My girl told me she saw you in Dallas, said you didn't look good. Did you barely finish the show?
And the possibility haunting this tour of them losing their voice, which may be the very end of their career. Well, luckily they're not going through it alone because they got their brother on their right-hand side, Barry Keoghan, but maybe he's not doing the things that should really help The Weeknd because he's just fueling his sex and drug addiction. While trying to pull off one of the biggest shows of their life, The Weeknd's worst fears come true and his voice is lost.
You know how much this kills me right now, I'm sorry.
He ditches the tour, but while ditching the tour, he runs into Jenna Ortega, and they have a magical night doing Lost, romance, John Hughes, teen cliches of riding Ferris wheels and having intimate moments. But when the morning arises and they wake up in the hotel and The Weeknd has seemingly gained back his confidence and decides to go back on tour,
I'm on a tour.
he finds himself mysteriously waking up, tied to the bed, and it turns out that Jenna Ortega is a crazed fan, and we don't know what her plans are for the Hurry Up Tomorrow, luckily, is not the Idol 2.0, and it is another expedition of The Weeknd getting into film and exploring acting. And I would say overall, it is definitely, if you're a Weeknd fan, go see this. I think if you're looking for an interesting cinematic experience and interesting visuals, also go see it. But I couldn't help but think these three questions while watching this film. Should The Weeknd be allowed to act? So a couple years ago, I made these about this, and it was the first time we ever saw The Weeknd act. And unfortunately, The Idol is one of the few artistic blemishes on The Weeknd's career.
Let me catch you looking at her again. Let me catch you looking at her again.
But even from that project, I saw potential there with The Weeknd, that clearly he was someone who loves film, who wants to try and act. And I think on this project, you can clearly see that his acting talents have grown. He does seem to be taking it serious. You know, he's emoting, he's crying. Now, I already see some memes that people are making in the theater about this type of his acting in the film.
Shut the f up! Shut the f up! Shut up! I have to go right now. I'm getting calls.
But I think they're being kind of ungenerous, and I think they're kind of hopping on the Idol bandwagon in a certain extent. But I do think watching this movie that it makes me think of another question that I want to ask y'all. What killed the Popstar vanity movie? With this project, The Weeknd is reviving a long lost medium, which I like to call the Popstar vanity film. There was a certain period of time, especially pre-internet, where if a pop star got to a big enough level, they started crossing over into film. Like, you know, Spice Girls, you have the Spice World movie, Britney Spears, you have the Crossword movie, the Beatles had a string of movies that they did. But that's something that's kind of lost now, and I think part of the reason why it was killed was a lot of times for these pop stars, these movies tended to be blemishes on their career because it turns out the same skills that you need to be a pop star are not quite the same things you need to be a good actor or to be in a good movie, because music is, I think for the most part, really good at extremes. There's a musical theater quote that when emotions become too extreme, you have to sing them. But unfortunately, when you bring that over to a film, you can have those big emotional moments, but you need breadcrumbs to kind of get to those moments. And sometimes there's a lot of pop stars that don't understand that, or sometimes don't have their ego in check enough to realize that they're not necessarily the strongest actor. But of course, I think one of the bright spots of this film has to do with my next question. Is Trey Edward Schultz just Sam Levinson 2.0? I think if this movie has any real merit, it has to do with the work of director Trey Edward Schultz. I think he has shown himself, especially with his film Waves, that he is a master of the visceral sensory experience that characters are going through. I think this movie's shining moments are a lot to do with capturing The Weeknd's internal mental state, especially the way that it is altered. But it is interesting because this is the second time that The Weeknd has worked with a director with real technical merits. The first time, of course, being The Idol with Sam Levinson. And it is interesting that I have kind of put Trey Edward Schultz and Sam Levinson in a similar bucket in certain ways, though I will say this. I think Trey Edward Schultz, in the ways that he is different from Sam Levinson, is the fact that like he is not as exploitative, and he does seem to be more interested in diving into the depths of a character's sort of emotional state, and I think that really does help here. Now, of course, Trey Edward Schultz has some stuff that sometimes is a little, he's not like the deepest director, but I think he is definitely not as harmful as someone like a Sam Levinson, and I do think he helps to The Weeknd shine here. So I will say this for certain creatives, especially if you're a director. Technicals are a real thing that you need to gain. Your stuff needs to look good. It needs to have a certain craftsmanship to it, but remember, you need to point those technicals towards story and towards emotional things. That if you don't do it, your technicals will come off empty. But hey, have you seen Hurry Up Tomorrow? Are you a fan of The Weeknd? Have you seen this film? Did you see things that I didn't see in this film? And if you have any interesting answers to the questions I just posed, I would love to read those, as long as there aren't some weird psychobabble tangent. But until next time, mahalo.